A brand new wide receiver trade target has emerged for Omar Khan and the Pittsburgh Steelers to consider as roster cuts loom on the horizon here in Pittsburgh. Then we'll get into the latest Steelers injury updates on key players like Keeanu, Benton, Beanie Bishop Jr., Nick Herbig, and more. And then we'll get into Yahya Black, the stud rookie that dominated the preseason for the Pittsburgh Steelers this year, and why I think he's ready to step up into a starting role as Derrick Harmon, his rookie classmate here in Pittsburgh, is set to miss the beginning of the 2025 season. Before we get into the content today, guys, whenever Omar makes a move here for a wide receiver or any other player, either before or after roster cuts this year, make sure you guys are subscribed for all of our breaking news coverage. We're going to have you guys covered for every signing, every waiver claim, every trade that Omar makes over this week. So make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you haven't already. And with that, let's get into the show here. And before we get into the trade request for the new trade target for the Pittsburgh Steelers at the wide receiver position, let's talk about some new roster cuts here for the Pittsburgh Steelers that happened today. This is from Mike DeFabo from The Athletic, saying that the Steelers have released 13 players: Mark Robinson, Julian Welschof, Lew Nichols, Max Hurleman, Lance McCutcheon, J.J. Galbreath, Stephen Jones, Aiden Williams, Kyler Baugh, Deshaun Jamison, Daryl Porter, Ben Sauls, and Cameron Johnson. Now, Mark Robinson, him being cut pretty much confirms that rookie out of Washington, Carson Bruner, who's also an excellent special teamer, is going to be taking Mark Robinson's spot on the final roster. He's younger, he's bigger, he just makes more sense to keep on the roster. And then obviously Lew Nichols had an awesome preseason. Hopefully they can bring him back maybe on practice squad, but I don't think anyone really expected him to, or anyone realistic expected him to make the final 53. And then the other kind of big thing here is the punter situation. Cameron Johnson, I mean, they brought him in on a pretty big contract for a punter last year because they had to replace Presley Harvin III. And, I think most people expected Johnson to be the punter here in Pittsburgh when he got back, including myself. But Corliss Waitman has won the punter battle here in Pittsburgh. And, I don't think that this is necessarily the Pittsburgh Steelers saying, Cameron Johnson's cooked or that he's bad or anything like that. I think that this is them saying Waitman and Johnson are really similar to each other in terms of how good they are as punters, but Waitman is less expensive to keep on the roster. The Steelers save about $2 million in cap space for this season by letting go of Johnston. So not only do you get a high level of play from your punter, but you also pay less for your starting punter. So I actually put Cameron Johnson on my list of cut candidates on my offseason cut candidates video this year because I kind of foresaw that the Steelers might see Waitman as somebody that's a good enough punter, a starting caliber punter, and want to get cheaper at that position. So I can actually see why the Steelers made this move, but all the reporting coming out was that the Steelers were going to go with Johnston. So this is a little bit of a surprise. But kind of shifting our focus now to some rumors here surrounding a new wide receiver trade target for the Pittsburgh Steelers. It is Jakobi Meyers from the Las Vegas Raiders. He formally requested a trade away from Las Vegas. Today, he has been trying to work on a new contract extension with the Raiders. He's currently making just over $10 million for this year on his current contract. He had a really good season last year, as we'll talk about, and he wants to get paid kind of closer to where he's at in terms of, his value to the team that he's bringing there in Las Vegas. It was reported by Ian Rappaport today saying Raiders wide receiver Jakobi Meyers recently met with the team brass and requested to be traded per me and Tom Pelissero. The team, citing his value, said they had no plans to do so. Meyers and the team attempted to negotiate a new contract, but could not come to terms. And all the reporting out there is that the Raiders have pretty much made no attempt to give Jakobi Meyers a contract extension to this point. And then Diana Rossini, shortly after Pelissero's report, said the Raiders, Steelers, Vikings, and Jets continue to scour the veteran wide receiver market ahead of roster cutdown day, sources say. Okay, so the Steelers are absolutely in the market for the right veteran wide receiver to add to this room. And you take a look at Jakobi Meyers, he would absolutely fit the bill here in Pittsburgh, man. He's going into his age 29 season, so he's not the youngest guy in the world, but good size, 6'2", 193 pounds, one of the best contested catch receivers in the game, one of the best intermediate level threats in the game today. Over a 60% catch rate when catching balls over the middle of the field, so he is not afraid to go over the middle in that intermediate level level of the field. So that is fantastic. And, he is seeking a new contract extension. And honestly, even though he's older than guys like Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jackson Smith and Jigba, kind of a similar kind of profile there as tough guys, as guys that maybe don't have great long speed to beat you deep, but they're really savvy route runners. They have good cutting ability, good, really solid hands to great hands. And Meyers, in my opinion, is one of the most underrated wide receivers in the entire NFL right now and would be one of the best number 2 receivers in the game if the Steelers were to land him. You see, last year he had a career year with over 1,000 yards receiving, 87 total catches, only had 4 touchdowns, but that's because the quarterback play was absolutely atrocious there in Las Vegas. Not a lot of opportunities to catch touchdowns last year, but that average well over a first down there with 11.8. And he's been a productive receiver in this league for a very long time, guys. Easily over 800 yards for the last 3 seasons before last year's 1,000-yard season. So Meyers has been a very reliable number 2 quality wide receiver for a long time. He run blocks. He does everything that the Steelers would want out of their number 2 receiver. So I would absolutely be in on him. Now, here's what I would offer the Las Vegas Raiders if I were the Steelers GM Omar Khan. I'd offer a 4th-round pick next year. The Steelers have multiple 4ths next year to kind of work with here. And I would offer Calvin Austin III. Right now, Calvin, because the Steelers offense wants their wide receivers on early downs to run block, he's really delegated to a passing downs role in this offense. I think he could maybe play a more every down role there in Las Vegas. Kind of similar skill set to Tyler Lockett, who Geno Smith had a really good relationship with back with the Seattle Seahawks. So I think this move could kind of make sense for both sides. I think the Steelers have the cap space to make this work, especially with the Cameron Johnston cut, all the moves that they have made to create more cap space for this season. I think this move makes sense for both sides, but obviously there will be other suitors. And then in terms of the extension, I would give Meyers a 2-year extension worth $18 to $20 million per season. I'd maybe even be willing to go up to like $22, $23 million per season in order to get this done. But I also want you guys to keep in mind here that an extension could very well still be in the cards for the Las Vegas Raiders and Jakobi Meyers. I mean, a good example of that is Terry McLaurin. He requested a trade this offseason, and what happened? He got a deal done with the Washington Commanders. All right, we saw it with Deebo Samuel with the 49ers. We saw it last offseason with Brandon Ayuk in the Niners, right? Just because a player requests a trade away from a team doesn't mean that an extension is off the table at that point. This very well could be a negotiation strategy from Jakobi to try and get the Raiders to the table. We'll see if it works, but if the Raiders are willing to come to the table, I am absolutely in on getting this guy and making him a big part of the Steelers offense moving forward. So let me know what you guys think down there in the comments section. Would you accept this trade to bring Jakobi Meyers to the Steel City? Give me an A for accept or D for decline. Let me know what you guys think down there in the comments section. This will be the pinned comment on today's show. In just a second here, I'm going to tell you about our new sponsor here on Steelers Talk, Harry's. And while I'm talking about Harry's, guys, go down there in the comments section and let me know if you would take this trade to bring Jakobi Meyers here to Pittsburgh. And with that, let's have a word from our sponsor today at Harry's. And let's face it, guys, buying razors in today's market absolutely sucks. The quality products are way too expensive, and when you try to save yourselves a couple of bucks and get yourself a lower priced brand, you get dull razors that are terrible after one usage, and then also they irritate your skin like crazy. That's why I switched to Harry's, and you can get Harry's trial set today for only $8, plus you get a free gift at harrys.com/chat. With Harry's, you get a barbershop quality shave with German engineered blades honed at 3 different angles to cut hair cleanly at the root without any tugging. But what makes Harry's the brand I trust is you get the quality shave without having to break the bank. Harry's owns their own factory in Germany, so there's no middlemen involved, which allows Harry's to pass down the savings to the consumer. And if you don't love your shave, Harry's will make it right. No questions asked. Their risk-free trial means there's zero downside to giving it a shot. And guys, I've been using Harry's products since college. Back in my early days when I was learning which products I liked, all that different stuff, I would either get way too expensive products that were quality, but, they would just drain my bank account, or or I would get kind of lower quality stuff at lower prices, but I would cut myself, my skin would be super irritated. But with Harry's, guys, it's a very affordable price. You can, it's reusable blades and stuff like that. So, and the handle you can use no matter how many times you replace the blade. It's absolutely fantastic. It's a great way to save money while also getting a quality shave every single time that you go to the bathroom sink. So for a limited time only, guys, our listeners get Harry's trial set for only $8 plus a free gift at harrys.com/chat. Just head on over to harrys.com/chat to receive our exclusive discount. And after your purchase, they'll ask you where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them that we sent you. A big shout out to Harry's for sponsoring today's edition of Steelers Talk. All right, so now let's get into the latest injury news surrounding the Pittsburgh Steelers. Got a number of updates today from the south side of Pittsburgh, where we have multiple people now over the weekend getting back to practice after missing, different levels of time. Alex Highsmith has been dealing with a groin injury. He's back at practice, and he is expected to be a full go for Week 1 versus the New York Jets in Week 1. Calvin Austin III has been working his way back from a minor oblique injury. He's been at practice. He's running routes now. He's catching punts, doing all the things that Calvin Austin III does. So he looks like he is a go to go Week 1, but obviously that's up to the trainers. Then Juan Thornhill, kind of with a mysterious unknown injury. I'm hoping it's not his calf injury that we've seen over the last couple seasons in Cleveland. Then you get Corey Trice Jr. has been dealing with a hamstring. He's working his way back. And then Dante Kent is also working back from his lower body injury as well. Then you get into Juan Thornhill. Guys, I really hope that whatever injury that he's dealing with right now, it's not calf tightness, because that is what has ailed him the last 2 seasons there in Cleveland. And if you've watched the film on Juan Thornhill during those 2 seasons, you know it's not exactly the best film, all right? So, you don't want him to be slower. You want him to be at full speed. You don't want those calves to get tight. And, of course, you know what happens when calves get tight. That leaves players vulnerable to Achilles injuries as well. So we would really not want that to happen to Juan Thornhill, especially because the free safety depth on this team behind Thornhill is not fantastic, all right? I know they brought in Chuck Clark, but he's not the fastest guy in the world. I don't know if I trust him to play post safety. So Thornhill, really need to keep him healthy, really hope he's okay. But he's back at practice and moving around, so it appears like whatever he's dealing with, it's minor. But some new injuries to talk about here. Keeanu Benton, the defensive tackle, is dealing with a minor upper body injury. He is expected to be ready to go for Week 1, but he is dealing with a little something right now. And then Beanie Bishop Jr. actually missed last week's preseason game versus Carolina. A very important game for him to play with a lower body injury. It might be an indication that the Steelers might be trying to shop him and trade him away before roster cutdown day. We'll see what ends up happening with Beanie. He's got a little bit of starting experience if the team is looking for some starting slot corner or maybe some slot corner depth. So we'll see what happens with Beanie. And then an update on Nick Herbig here from Mike Tomlin today, said that he's still questionable for Week 1 versus the Jets with that hamstring injury that he suffered versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So hopefully Herbig can get back on the field as soon as possible, because we all know how valuable he is as this team's third edge rusher and designated pass rusher. And then some good news on the injury front here. Will Howard and his broken pinky appear to be getting back here. He was throwing at practice today. He was a kind of limited participant. He wasn't a full participant yet, but Mike Tomlin said today that he is trending towards full participation very soon, and that he probably should be ready to go by the time we get to Week 1 versus the Jets. So that is bad news for Skylar Thompson, who I think the only chance he makes this team is if they trade Mason Rudolph to the Raiders, in a trade for Jakobi Meyers. That's a possibility, but I do think if you have Mason Rudolph and you have Will Howard ready to go for Week 1, I think they waive Skylar Thompson, and he probably gets picked up by another NFL football team. Had an awesome preseason. He deserves to be on a 53-man roster, but I do think this team values the youth of Will Howard over a guy like Skylar Thompson. Then we get to whether or not they should shop Skylar Thompson, which I absolutely think that they should. I think that the Steelers should shop Skylar Thompson if they can get a 7th rounder out of him. If you're going to waive him anyway, if you can get a 7th round pick for Skylar Thompson, maybe from the Las Vegas Raiders, or include Skylar in a trade for Jakobi Meyers, you can certainly do that. And I think there are teams that would be willing to potentially bring in Skyler as a third quarterback option or maybe even a QB2 option because he played great during the preseason this year. Over a 70% completion percentage. He had almost 500 yards passing in those 3 games. Also, 166 yards per game when he essentially played a game and a half of total reps. 4 touchdowns to just 1 interception. So he played very well during the preseason. He deserves an opportunity to be on a 53-man roster this year. And if the Steelers can get a 7th-round pick out of that and out of him, that would be absolutely fantastic. So predict it for me down there in the comments section. Will the Steelers trade, cut, or keep Skyler Thompson this year? Type T for trade, type C for cut, or K for keep. Let me know what you guys think down there in the comments section. For me, I hope they can get a 7th-round pick out of him, but I would say probably the most likely scenario at this point is he ends up getting cut and picked up by somebody around the league. Then we'll finish up here with some thoughts on Yahya Black, the big tummy himself. Yahya is an awesome player, guys. He was always a great run stuffer at Iowa, but it seems like he has added some pass rush moves and some great power to his game that we didn't really see coming out of Iowa, and I think a lot of it has to do with his pad level, which looks phenomenal. It looks way better now in the preseason than what it looked like on his Iowa film, and the people that have watched both can attest to that. But he needs to step up early this year because of some injuries to Keeanu, Benton, and some injuries to Derrick, Harmon. That's going to force Yahya to play more snaps than maybe was originally forecasted by the Steelers coaching staff. And the good news is, guys, I think he's ready for that action, all right? Like his ability to take on 2 players, to these double teams that, frankly, Keeanu Benton has had a little bit of an issue with at times playing nose tackle, but Black still has, the pass rushing savvy. He had an awesome push-pull move to get to the quarterback against the Panthers last Thursday. He's got a great bull rush. He was winning from 7 technique, which is like a defensive end alignment. Like Yahya was doing so much during the preseason run defense. He batted down a pass. He was getting into the backfield with pressures. Like this guy just looked really, really good, and I have to credit defensive line coach Carl Dunbar for developing this young man this early into his NFL career. I mean, frankly, if I'd have to choose between Yahya Black and Derrick Harmon based on the film, which one was the first round pick, I would have told you it was Yahya Black. Like he was that impressive on his preseason film. And he was still dealing with a little bit of an elbow issue as well, so maybe not that full potential have we been, allowed to see yet. So I'm very excited about Yahya Black. With some of these kind of minor injuries that the defensive line is going through, I have every confidence in Black to be able to fill whatever role this Steelers team needs him to as a quote-unquote starter to start out this season. And I'm very excited to see what Yahya Black and Derrick Harmon as the new defensive tackle duo here in Pittsburgh for the future is going to be able to do in the years to come. All right, that's going to be it for today's edition of Steelers News and Rumors. Thank you guys so much for making it to the end of today's show. Tomorrow is roster cut down day. We're going to have full extensive coverage of the full initial 53-man roster for the Black and Gold when it comes out tomorrow. So make sure you guys click that subscribe button for that extensive coverage.